The neon signs of Kepler Station's lower markets flickered in perpetual twilight, casting strange shadows across the faces of a dozen different species. Jackson weaved through the crowd, his hand instinctively patting his jacket pocket. Empty. His heart sank. The wallet wasn't just a wallet. It contained his work permit, his last credits, and most importantly, the only photograph he had of his sister back on Earth. Without it, he was stranded on this god's-forsaken station in the Outer Rim. "Excuse me, mister?" Jackson turned to find a small figure standing behind him. She barely reached his waist, with large violet eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, like oil on water, and two small antennae protruded from her forehead. A Zalari child, one of the rarest species in this sector. "You dropped this," she said in perfect standard, holding up his worn leather wallet. Relief flooded through him. "Thank you. I thought I'd lost it forever." He knelt down to her level, taking the wallet and checking its contents. Everything was still there. "What's your name, little one?" "Ivy," she whispered, her antennae drooping slightly. "And I need to ask you something. A favor." Jackson studied her more carefully now. Her clothes were threadbare, patches upon patches, and there was a hollowness to her cheeks that no child should have. "What kind of favor?" Ivy's eyes darted around nervously before she grabbed his hand with her small four-fingered grip. "Please come with me." "It's my mother. She's dying." The word hit Jackson like a physical blow. He'd seen death before, too, much of it during the war. But something about the desperate hope in this child's eyes made him follow without question. She led him through winding corridors that grew progressively darker and more decrepit, away from the tourist sectors and into the parts of the station most visitors never saw. Finally, they reached a cramped quarters barely large enough to be called a room. On a makeshift bed lay a Xylari woman, her skin dull and gray where it should have been luminescent. "Mama," Ivy whispered, rushing to her side. "Mama, I found help." The woman's eyes opened slowly, focusing on Jackson with difficulty. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Human, you shouldn't be here. It's dangerous for you." "What's wrong with her?" Jackson asked, kneeling beside the bed. "Quark syndrome," Ivy said, tears streaming down her iridescent cheeks. "She needs medicine, but humans are the only ones who can get it. The Galactic Medical Board, they won't sell to Xylari anymore. Not since the treaty violations." Jackson's jaw tightened. He knew about the treaty, a political mess that punished an entire species for the actions of their government. "What do you need me to do?" "Buy the medicine," Ivy said, pulling out a small data chip. "I have the prescription here, but they'll only sell to humans or council species. Please, mister. I found your wallet and brought it back. I could have taken the credits, but I didn't. I just need you to help my mama." The weight of her words settled over Jackson like a shroud. She could have robbed him, should have robbed him by the desperate look of their situation, but she'd chosen honesty instead. She'd gambled everything on the goodness of a stranger. He looked at the mother whose breathing had become labored. Then at Ivy, who watched him with those impossibly large eyes full of hope and terror. Without another word, Jackson took the data chip. "Where's the nearest pharmacy?" The Galactic Pharmacy on Level 7 was sterile and bright, a stark contrast to the darkness Jackson had just left. The Centaurian clerk looked at him with obvious disdain as he approached. "Quark's treatment?" The clerk sneered, reading the prescription. "Let me guess, buying it for a Xylari? You know that's technically legal but highly discouraged." "I know what it is," Jackson said flatly. "How much?" 1,500 credits. Jackson's blood ran cold. He had maybe 300 in his wallet. "That's price gouging." "That's market rate," the clerk corrected with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Supply and demand. Not my fault the Xylari made enemies." Jackson stared at the counter, his mind racing. 1,500 credits. He could work for months and not save that much. He knew what he had to do. 20 minutes later, he returned with a different clerk, a human woman with kind eyes, and a significantly lighter load. He'd sold his return ticket to Earth, pawned his sister's photograph, and traded his work permit for a one-time emergency credit advance that would take years to pay off. But he had the medicine. When Jackson returned to the cramped quarters, Ivy's face transformed. She grabbed the medical pack like it was the most precious thing in the universe, and for her it was. The treatment worked quickly. Within an hour, color began returning to the mother's skin. Her breathing steadied and her eyes cleared. She looked at Jackson with an expression he couldn't quite name. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "Why would you sacrifice so much for strangers?" Jackson thought about his answer carefully. "Because a little girl found my wallet and gave it back when she needed the money more than I did. Because she believed in the goodness of strangers, because—" He paused. "Because that's what humans do. We're stubborn like that." Ivy threw her arms around him and Jackson felt something break and heal inside his chest simultaneously. "How will you get home?" the mother asked, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I'll figure it out," Jackson said with a shrug. "Always do." As he left that cramped room and walked back into the neon chaos of Kepler Station, Jackson realized he'd lost everything: his ticket home, his photo, his work permit, but somehow he felt richer than he'd ever been. Behind him, a little alien girl stood in the doorway with her mother, both of them glowing with renewed life. Ivy waved, her antennae standing straight and proud, and Jackson waved back, knowing that this moment, this single act of human stubbornness and compassion, would ripple through the galaxy in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Because that's what humans did best. They hoped. They sacrificed, and they never stopped believing that one person could make a difference, even when logic said otherwise, especially then.